Welcome back, everyone. For this week's interview, we sit down and have a little chat with Ranty Flat Earth. One thing that's a little different about this interview is that Ranty actually has a specialty, or one area that he has focused on, and that's photography and optics. Whereas a lot of flat earthers are generalists and shotgun with their information, Ranty has spent the last 3 years focusing on nothing but taking pictures of objects and the horizon. We may not agree in the results of his observations, but he does have a lot of insight into what he's taking pictures of. So with that, take it away, Ranty Flat Earth. So today I am talking to Ranty Flat Earth. He has been gracious enough to give me some of his time so that we can get to know him a little bit better. So Ranty, if you would just do a quick intro, who are you and kind of who are you in the community?
I'm just your average Joe guy that just got interested in the shape of the Earth, flat Earth, looking into it, researching it, and I just do my own little thing, in my own little corner of the internet kind of thing.
You've got a tiny little portion of YouTube that you call your own?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a little family over there. You know, I have quite a few people that I speak to. So, you know, it's I never expected to be in this position, you know, to have a channel like mine. Never expected that. Never even really thought about it, to be fair. It's just I've ended up where I've ended up, you know.
Yeah.
Just is what it is. Just is what it is. You know,
Yeah.
nature has just pushed me in this direction, and this is where I am. So,
Yeah. So if you would start, talk to us about how you grew up, where you grew up, family size. Who are the influences of you growing up as a kid?
Oh, my grandfather was the influence. Everything that I did was to try and be like him. He was the one person that I looked up to as a kid. He was like the father that I never had, really. I mean, my father, I did have a father. Obviously, everyone has a father, but my dad was, you know, one of the 60s, 50s type of guys. You know, he was always out with the lads drinking, and never really saw much of him at home, to be fair. So, as a father figure, it was more of my granddad, and looking up to him. And you know, he was religious, you know, and he coined a phrase to me when I was really young, stuck in my mind. He said, give me the boy until he's 7 and I'll give you the man. And I think everything that I learned from being under the age of 7, which was all a lot down to him, you know, I mean, just everything, work ethic. I mean, I used to work with him under 7 years of age on the weekends. You know, he'd bring me, he was a master builder, so he would take me to his place of work, whatever job he was doing, and I would labor for him, and he would just show me little things to do, or this is how you lay a brick, and this is how you do it. And of course, by the time I was 10 and 11, you know, I was bricklaying with him, you know, on the weekends and after school and stuff like that. I think the last job we did I think I was about 15 or so. Ended up doing a full extension on the back of this house that we were getting through over the weekends at night and stuff. So yeah, I mean, the work ethic and everything came from him, and all my influences were from him, I would say.
Okay. Do you have any brothers or sisters growing up?
Yeah, I've got a few. I've got a few. Half brothers, half sisters, full sister.
Mixed family a bit?
Yeah, a bit of mixed, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, some still live down south. Some live locally. Lost touch with a few of them at different times throughout my life, but reconnected recently again. So it's all good. Yeah.
When you grew up, what were your interests as a kid? Like every kid, you know, something they want to grow up to be. I hate to say it, but did you want to be an astronaut when you grew up?
No. Well, hang on, did I or didn't I? Hang on. Well, all right, okay, let's be honest. Button Moon. I loved Button Moon as a kid, right? So you probably don't remember that, but it was a kids program where they got in like this little space rocket and they would go to the moon and back all the time and stuff. And I had wallpaper all around my bedroom that was NASA orientated with lunar landers and rockets and
like
all
every
this
kid
kind
does.
of stuff. Yeah. And I made my own little rocket out of a plastic bottle. And I used to pretend that I was going off to the moon. Just like a kid does, you know. 3 or 4 years of age, you know, little play with these little rocket things and think you're a bit of a spaceman sort of thing. So yeah, of course. I mean, it was really big back then. You know, probably still is now. I mean, but as a kid, I mean, everything was like orientated towards space. You had, was it space? There was like a TV program that they were like Lost in Space. It was called. That was it. So that was on a Saturday. He had Star Wars, Star Trek. you name it, everything was space, space, space. So
About how old are you? Just so you can kind of compare.
I'm 44.
Okay, I'm 41. So about the same age range. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just different continents.
Definitely different continents.
So
The old TVs though, then back then, I mean, you had to turn the telly over with your finger, you know, I mean, you didn't have a
oh
remote control or anything like that.
oh no, you were the remote control because I remember being woken up by my parents down the hallway to come into the living room and change the channel for them. It's like you couldn't have got out of your chair.
That's true. That's true. Uh,
So did you have any specific aspirations for life in when you were young?
well, when I was young, my aspirations was just going out with my friends and playing. You know, I mean, I was an outside kid. You know, I mean, I was
Yeah.
never, you know, we didn't have much as a in terms of money or finances or anything like that. So we had to make our own entertainment. So the kids that used to live near me, I was really good friends with. So you know, we used to go playing on the back fields all the time and playing in dikes and skating on the ice and.
Hmm.
You know, all kinds of stuff. Playing on the dump. There was a dump over there, and we used to go.
Ah,
You know, making things, and you know,
finding the
making
stuff other people threw away. Just
yeah,
yep,
lightsabers and all things like this. You know,
yeah.
once found this hairdryer, I brought it back, I plugged it in, and it still worked. I was like, wow. It was funny, just funny stuff as kids, you know. But we used to make swords and bows and arrows and stuff like that. Play Robin Hood, all
Mm.
that kind of stuff. You know, proper outdoors kids. You know, really, really outdoors. So you never really had much time for gadgets or anything like that. I mean, it's not like nowadays where the kids, the first thing they reach for is you know, as a smartphone or something like that. I mean, yeah, you know, our
Yeah,
experiences were outside, you know.
yeah. It's hard forcing the kids to go outside these days.
And to be
It's a
fair,
task.
I mean, um, we never got ill, you know, because we were out playing in all the dirt all the time. I mean, we were covered in dirt every time we went out. Came home, we were filthy. We'd been swimming in dikes, we'd been swimming in the ponds. You know, we'd been everywhere, covered in stuff, and you get used to all the microbes and the bacteria and the stuff like that, and all this kind of stuff. And we just never get ill. It's very rare we get ill or get the flu or anything. I think your immune system gets built up as you know when you're a kid because you're doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I just
Uh,
listened to a podcast. They're referring to it as free range child parenting, free range parenting, letting the kids run out and get dirty.
oh, yeah, it was free range, 6 in the morning till 6 at night. I mean, we could be gone all day long. My mum probably had an easy time, really. To be fair, never saw us. I wasn't working with my granddad. I was out playing with my friends, and you know, yeah, just the way it was.
So then, what did you do early adulthood after you got out of school and started becoming an adult?
Well, uh, at 15/16, obviously we take your GCSEs at 16. Well, you know, probably at 15 I had my own window cleaning round. So up in Fleetwood. So on the weekend I would go up on the Saturday and the Sunday and do all the window cleanings up there. So I had a big pair of wooden ladders, a V ladder and a scrim bucket, you know, and you name it, cleaning windows. Um, at 16, I was taking my GCSEs and I had a painting job across the road that I was working on with my dad. There was a little bungalow across the road. So I would go there in the morning, do some decorating work for them. And then the old lady that had the house, she said to me, oh, it's fine. You know, if you want to get into your uniform, have a shower. So I'd go, had a shower, get into my school uniform, go across, take my GCSEs, come back across again, take my clothes off again, get back into my painting stuff and carry on painting. So it was like immediate. I already had my life mapped out essentially back then. It didn't really matter to get a qualification back then, you know, because I had decorating, I had building. You know, my granddad had taught me building. I was always working. I had window cleaning round, painting, decorating, all sorts. So I could fend for myself, sort of thing.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
So then, talk to me about your. Are there any other milestones in your adult life that are kind of stand out, major events?
Milestones, as in happy milestones. Well, yeah, I mean, my mum, my mum's clever, right? She is clever, and she decided to go and take a college course. So she did a college course, and then she went from there, and she ended up taking on a degree. She ended up taking on 2 degrees at the same time, and she got them both. So I think one was in criminology and one was in law, and she actually passed them both.
Oh, wow.
And at the same time, so she took them both at the same time, passed them both at the same time. It was a full honours degree. And then when I was in my, what would it be, mid-30s or something like that, I decided to do the same. So having no qualifications essentially, to actually just going straight onto a level 5 degree, that's what I did. And I went on, and it was bloody hard. And after the first 2 years, obviously you get a part degree kind of thing. But if you want your full honours degree, you have to stay on for another year. And I really debated about, what do I want to do this? And it was more a case of, I didn't want to do it, but I wanted to do it to just prove it to myself that I could do it, you know. And so I did. So I stuck at it, and I ended up getting my full honours degree. So from being the kid that had nothing when I left school to actually just suddenly ended up just taking on a degree out of the blue and managed to get it, it was for me, that was an important. It just proves to me that I could do something, you know.
And it's I would say that is a big accomplishment for, not to say that the 30s is midlife, but not immediately post elementary school, primary school. What was the degree in?
It was in media design, so it was basically building apps for phones, building websites, special effects, 3D 3D graphics, all this kind of thing, building and making, editing videos, all this kind of stuff. Learning what compression on the compression formats of video formats and stuff, just a bunch of technical stuff that literally I didn't know anything about, because I only just went in. I wanted to go in there and just learn about web design. That was it. I just wanted to build my own website. So taking on all these other things was kind of like part of the course, but I had no idea about it. I think at the time I only had a 3310. that was the limit of my technology and a laptop. You know, I didn't understand much of anything. In fact, the kids that came up, they'd gone through the level 1, 2, 3, and 4s, and they all, you know, I mean, so straight away they were saying, "Oh, can you turn your computer on? Can you go and load up this and load up that?" And yeah, so they were just firing it all up, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at this technology that I have no idea what it's supposed to do. Right, what do I do? And then I literally had to be walked through every step of the way, and then it was a case of, okay, so I was learning as I went ahead. You know, I was so far behind everybody. It really, I considered quitting so many times, but I stuck at it. So
How tough was it being the old man in the room?
I wasn't the oldest.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, there was a guy that was older than me, and he had come up through the levels too. So he'd done his like level 1, 2, 3, and 4. So sort of like I migrated towards him, obviously, because he's more my age, and he was really clever. I mean, he had the time and the patience to just go, yeah, you do this, you do that, you do that, blah blah blah, and then I'd crack on for half an hour, 40 minutes. If I got any trouble, I'd just call him over again, and he'd go, yeah, do this. Right, cheers, mate. Yeah, good.
So have you used that degree in your personal professional life yet?
Not really. No.
Yeah.
No.
That happens with degrees all the time. You do what you want, and then you end up not being employed doing what you want.
To be honest, I think all the stuff that I learnt back then is so outdated anyway, right now. I mean, probably after just 3 years of me finishing the course, all the stuff, all the languages that we learnt in computing and stuff like that, all the programs and software that we used was all outdated. It was all outdated after just a couple of years. You know, so there's no way I could get back into it again now. Not a chance. I would say, oh, I've got a degree in this, and this is the languages that I've learned, and this is the software that I've used, and they'd go, well, we don't use that anymore. You can use this. You can, you know, just one.
So on the personal side, married, kids, family, anything like that throughout those years?
Yeah, 2 kids. Two kids. I'm not married though. I will be hopefully next year.
Oh. Hopefully.
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, finally going to get walked down the aisle.
How old are the kids?
Oh, 22 and 16.
Okay. Yeah, I'm at the young end of that. I'm 41, but I've been, actually next month will be my 20-year anniversary, and we have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. So
wow.
We were married for 10 years before we had our first kid.
Wow.
Yeah. But in that time, we lived in Colorado, Hawaii, and the Netherlands. So we got to travel around the world.
Right. Are you a military guy then?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we talked last time. I'm in Korea right now. I'll be here for the next 2.5, 3 months before I get to head home permanently, and the family's back home without me.
Okay.
So getting close to the end. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, how many years have you done now then?
In 4 days, I hit 20 years.
So when do you retire? 25?
Uh, I could retire at 20, but I was promoted last week, and accepting that promotion obligates me to 2 more years.
Right, okay.
I owe the Army 2 more years. So in 2 years, then I can retire.
But what rank is that then?
I'm a
That
Chief Warrant
you've made it?
Officer 3.
Ah,
So
okay.
I don't know if you don't know so I made it on the enlisted side, private through Sergeant First Class, E7, and then I jumped over on the warrant side, W1, W2, now I pinned W3 last week.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
So
mean, I joined the Air Training Corps as a kid. In fact, I was in loads of different stuff as a kid. I was in the Cubs, then the Scouts, then I did boxing for like 4 years. I did Taekwondo for 11 years.
oh
So I was doing all this kind of stuff at the same time, and then I ended up joining obviously the Scouts and then the Air Training Corps. So then obviously you do your Air Training Corps, and I ended up getting promoted to Warrant Officer there too.
yeah.
So it was kind of like the highest rank you could get to. So I was
Mm,
like 17 when I finally left there. But it was great stuff. I mean, I actually considered joining the army to be a pilot in the army because I loved flying.
yeah.
Absolutely loved flying. So in the Air Training Corps, we used to fly all different kinds of planes. Bulldogs, World War II planes, bulldogs, chipmunks. I've flown a glider. So doing all the aerobatics and stuff, loop loops, barrel rolls, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
so then what brought you into the flat earth?
Oh, started 9/11 really.
Talk to
Started
me.
with 9/11. Well, I watched it 9/11 live. I was actually at home. I had a rare day off, and I'd just considered starting to write a book. So I had been writing a book for just a couple of weeks only. I'd probably only been in a few chapters of this book, and I was having kind of like a moment where I'm thinking, what am I going to write next? What am I going to write next? Telly was on in the background, and then all hell broke loose. There was like, oh, planes have hit the World Trade Center, blah 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 blah. So obviously started watching it, and I watched it live, and I was horrified. I mean, I thought it was going to be like World War Three.
Hmm.
This is what's going off now. So I'm watching it, and it's kind of weird. I was watching it and something just didn't feel right all the time. It was like there was something there that just didn't feel right. I didn't not believe it for a minute. I believed everything that was being told me, but just the way the buildings fell, something just didn't feel right. And it was always that I never realized that something didn't feel right until I actually watched a video that said it wasn't right. And when the video said the buildings fell in free fall and they just fell in their own footprint, and I was like, I know, because that's what I've been thinking all this time, but I just couldn't put my finger on why I knew something wasn't right. And that got me looking into it. And of course, once you start on these conspiracies, I would recommend to anybody that does wants to go into conspiracies, don't do it. Stay in your little bubble. The world is great. You don't need to go into conspiracies. Don't do it. Stay away from it, right? Because once you go down those rabbit holes, it takes you into a whole different realm of different things that you follow. Everything from chemtrails, 7/7, 9/11, the deep state, all this kind of stuff, fake history in the past. I mean, you can literally go and just spend your entire life thinking about all this stuff and it would drive you nuts. So that's what started me off 9/11, and I'm inquisitive, and
So
just one thing led
prior
to
prior to nine
no,
eleven, were you conspiratorial thinking?
no, I was asleep. I was proper asleep. I still believed everything that I was told.
So if that got 9/11 got you into the conspiracy minded,
Yeah.
what specifically do you remember how you got into flat Earth itself?
Oh yeah, and I remember the exact moment. Um, there was Alex Jones. Have you heard of Alex
Oh yeah,
Jones? Yeah.
definitely.
So I was watching his videos like every day for about 6 months. So I was following it live. I think it was the build up to the Trump campaign around that time, sort of thing. And he went on this rampage this one day saying that all his channel had been demonetized and blah 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 blah, and he was really angry about it, and this, that, and the other. And I thought, oh, that's terrible. Took his livelihood away. Blah blah. Next thing, because up till then, any time that people had talked about flat Earth, he'd dismissed them as cooks and cut them off right immediately and said, "Don't be ridiculous." And I was the same. No, I mean, flat Earthers, weirdos, and they took his monetized channel off of him. And the very next day, Paul Joseph Watson puts out a video on Infowars, and it's called "Eddie Bravo Proves the Flat Earth." Right, so it was released on Alex Jones's channel, and it was like an hour conversation of them in the pub with Eddie Bravo. He didn't prove the flat Earth. He didn't. He just brought up some interesting concepts that might make you think about that the Earth might be flat. There was definitely no proof in it. It was just them having a conversation about flat Earth. And there was a couple of things in there that interested me. But the main thing that interested me more was the fact that they'd put a flat Earth video out on Infowars, and I thought, that's weird. The next day I went to go and watch it again, and it was removed completely. It wasn't on his channel. And he'd had a video out an hour or two before saying, "Hey guys, I've got my monetization back now." Right? So he got his channel, he got his monetization back. Everything was hunky-dory. The video about flat Earth had been removed. And I was putting two and two together immediately and thinking, that's very interesting. He's complaining that he's had his money taken off of him. They release a video about flat Earth. They remove the video about flat Earth. He gets his monetization back. It's like, that can't be coincidence to me. So I started looking into flat Earth then, and then I was just, straight away, like, I can see where these guys are coming from.
So what was it? What was the first bit of evidence in the flat Earth that you saw?
Oh, to be honest, I can't remember what videos it were. I only maybe watched half a dozen videos, and there really wasn't any evidence in there. The one thing that stuck out though was about video proof. And one thing I can do is I can video stuff, right? And I live in Blackpool, so I have a big area down here where I can go down to the beach, and I've got land to the south and I've got land to the north. And the first thing I thought about doing was, do you know what? I need to go and get a big camera and go and check for myself. So I researched immediately what's the best zoom camera in the world, and at the time it was a P900. So I went and bought that immediately. This is within a few days of this Alex Jones video. Bought the P900, went down to the beach, and I just started doing my own research. Basically, I already had a channel about chemtrails. You know, I mean, my channel about chemtrails, I had probably 400 videos on chemtrails that I'd been filming just with a phone. So I always knew that at some point I probably needed to get a camera. But this gave me an opportunity to go and do my own research and just see for myself and see, okay, well, I can work out calculations. There's a radius to the Earth. We can plug those details in. How much can we see? Pretty quickly I determined that, well, at least where I live anyway, you can see far further than you should be able to on a globe. And it wasn't like it wasn't a consistent, it wasn't like just an odd day where you get to see this stuff. I mean, it was like consistently, you go down to the beach and you consistently see far further than you should on a globe. And I didn't need to see any other evidence past my own eyes and my own evidence of what I saw. And I saw that I could see further.
Did you ever see anything that could conform to curvature?
I've seen blockage and things that have sort of like confounded me at times. I mean, this one time, see, I would go down to Ankersholme, right? So Ankersholme, so there's a distance between Ankersholme and Barrow-in-Furness, right? And it's depending on what you're looking at. Let's say it's the lighthouse. The lighthouse is 13 miles away. The big buildings in Barrow are about 18 to 18 and a half miles away from where I do my filming from. But I actually went nearer up the coast. So I went a little bit further up the coast. So I was actually going nearer to the lighthouse, and I was going nearer to Barrow-in-Furness. So it wasn't quite as far away. And I found this nice new spot, what I thought would be a great location where I could lie on this concrete slab as the tide rolls in, and I could get down to like an inch or two literally above the water on a really calm day. And I thought, this is going to be an excellent spot to do this. So I went down there, started filming, and I was seeing physical blockage of the water. The water was physically cutting off the bottom of the lighthouse and the bottom of the buildings in the distance. And this is a nearer location. So this is nearer, and I'm getting physical blockage of water. And further away, I'm seeing it completely flat. And I couldn't process what was going on at the time. I released the video. I mean, I don't hold anything back. I mean, that's one thing about my channel, which has a lot of people saying, "Oh, he produces the best globe Earth proof."
Well, I was going to mention that in a minute.
It's like, I mean, no, I'm just honest. I don't just ever just show you just complete flat all the time. I'll show the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it's our reality. It's our reality. It's what we see. And unless we understand what's going on and what's happening here, we can't just always claim that it's always flat, because it isn't always the case. There is times when you see things that just are clearly not looking like the flat. There is blockage, physical blockage, and this was physical blockage. And it took me, I don't know, 6 weeks or so to then revisit it and look into it. And then I sat down for a day and I started researching the area and the location. And I found out that there's actually a tidal bore that rushes in that location. So I went back to the video that I filmed and I checked the time on it. I went back and I researched the tide times. It was 2 hours before high tide, which was absolutely the perfect time, where they said these tidal bores start in this location. 2 hours before high tide, you get the tidal surge, pushes in. It can raise the water by as much as 2 meters. So you can as it's slowing down, it's creeping over the top of each other, causing a physical blockage. And as I'd done on the video, I actually went down to I left my camera there and I walked down to the water's edge. And you could see that the camera touched roughly about my chest height. So I could estimate I was about 4 feet above sea level. So where I was filming from, I was 4 feet above sea level, but at the same time, there was a 2 meter tidal surge pushing in, called the tidal bore, up in that location. It's a very rare phenomena that happens just specifically in just a few locations. This is one of them. And that's why I was seeing physical blockage. And then it was like, wow, who'd have thought that?
I remember it was like a month ago you were on Jeranism and you were talking specifically about that.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. I mean, when you start researching how the tides behave, don't get me wrong, I don't understand, or I haven't looked into it properly, what causes the tides, right? Because to be fair, they do seem to go in sync with the moon. So let's be honest, that's an issue that we need to look into. However, the fact that you actually can demonstrate that the properties of water and what happens during the tidal movements, if it's just flat water being washed across from one side to the other with no curvature, no hump, the topography of the land underneath can play a massive part in creating obstructions. So we've got shoaling that happens. So as the water pushes in up against a ramp like this, and the tide's pushing in, and you've got a ramp here, it's creating friction on the floor, so it slows down, and the water's pushing up and pushing up and pushing up, and it's encountering this resistance, and it climbs above, and it artificially increases the height of the water in those specific locations. So places like Hawaii, places like Australia, New Zealand, that have got these massive drop-offs. You go out just a mile or two out to shore and it just drops straight off. I mean, the land goes right down. Here it's flat. From here all the way to the Isle of Man, from here all the way to Ireland, you've only got a depth of about 40 meters. In drop off. It doesn't go any deeper than that. But places in Australia, you go out a mile or two and you're at half a mile deep. So you've got all that tide pushing in a very sharp incline like that. You're going to get, the water's going to be pushing up and flowing over the top of it, called shoaling. So it's just interesting to look around and realize why you might think that in Australia, for instance, and New Zealand, people are mostly adamant that the Earth is a globe. And if you stand at the shoreline and you look out, you can understand why, because there's probably all this shoaling effect that goes on that creates blockage. They don't really see very far in Australia or New Zealand, just because of the way the water is. But here in the UK, there's so many different people all around the UK filming that can see far, far further, and that's because the land around the UK and the underwater land is very shallow. You don't get these big drop-offs.
That is very interesting. I'd heard your talk about the shoaling and the tidal bulge, or the was it boring? Not boring.
There's a tidal bore that we get where we are, but you get shoaling that happens down in the south. But you also get swell, which is prominent throughout all over the world. So you could do a swell report for like Rottnest Island, for instance. Wolfie goes and does some filming down at Rottnest Island. Well, there's always a swell in that location, and it's generally between 2 meters and 4 meters in height, this swell, which means the amplitude of the swell is between 1 meter and 2, so it's half of the swell height. So you've got half up, half down. It's like a trough, peak to trough. So that's the full if that's 4 meters. So if you're at the shoreline and you're looking out to Rottnest Island and you've got a 4 meter swell, the water is swelling like this up and down, but it could be up to 2 meters high. So if you're only 6 foot tall and you're trying to look over a 2 meter swell, you're going to see blockage.
Okay. One common phrase or statement is that with the P900 or the P1000, you can pull ships back in and see them. What's your opinion on that statement?
I disagree with that.
Why do you say that?
Because in a perfect world where you're just recreating it on a piece of software, and you can demonstrate that you will always be able to pull the boat back. It doesn't matter how far away you push that boat. If you just keep zooming in and zooming in, suddenly the boat's there, right? But that doesn't happen in reality because we have the atmosphere. The atmosphere plays a big part in causing blockage. So, for instance, if you're looking over water and you realise that the ecosystem and how we create clouds, for instance, how we create clouds, right? So you've got evaporation that happens from the oceans. So somewhere, if you're looking across the ocean and you're looking at a boat in the distance at, say, 15 miles away, you're looking across 15 miles of water that is slowly evaporating to create the clouds. Right? So it doesn't take a lot to create a bit of blockage. There's dirt in the air, dust in the air. You've got the waves that are rolling up and down in front of you. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happens. And one of the main blockage points that we see here in the UK is an inferior mirage. You don't tend to get that as often in places like Australia and New Zealand. It's like I say, it's weird. It seems like it's more physical blockage down there, but I think that's down to the topography of the underwater, the land underneath, that creates this physical blockage of water due to the shoaling and swell. But here in the UK, where we've got this flat area, we get this inferior mirage. And that's the blockage that we see. So can you always pull a boat back? I don't think so. I can, every time I go out, I always encounter an inferior mirage here, and the boats always seem to disappear into this inferior mirage. And yeah, so I don't believe. Go on.
Is that what you feel causes the boats to disappear from bottom up?
Yes.
The inferior mirage?
Yeah. Well, there's two things to think about. You've got mirroring, which is clearly, if you see a duck on the lake and you see its reflection, it's a reflection, you know. But don't be confused with seeing a reflection of a duck on a lake to what an inferior mirage is. The inferior mirage is something completely different. It looks the same, but it's different. So, for instance, I've gone down to Barrow-in-Furness again. I'm looking at this lighthouse that's just 13 miles away. Now, my elevation is about 60 feet above actual sea level at this time. And I can go down there and I can see an inferior mirage probably 8 times out of 10. So when I go down and I just see shore to shore, we see the full lighthouse, we see there's no problem with seeing any of the banks that's in front of it or anything like that. So you see everything down to the shoreline. And you should be able to. I mean, at that sort of height, and at that distance, there should be no problem with any kind of earth curvature or flatness. You should just be able to see everything anyway. But 8 times out of 10 I'll go, and there's an inferior mirage there. And this inferior mirage envelops at least half of the lighthouse, including all the embankment beneath it. Now, I should have just direct line of sight at all times from 60-foot elevation at 13 miles away. I should have just direct line of sight to all of this every time I go. But the inferior mirage blocks off half of the lighthouse. Now, that's not Earth curvature. It can't be Earth curvature. You know, it's impossible for that. So what is the inferior mirage? You know, so when I started looking into the inferior mirage, what that is, I was able to demonstrate that it happens in the atmosphere, you know, above the water.
It's in the air above the water. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the air above the water. So at some point, when the boat disappears, obviously, so we'll apply this same logic to the boat disappearing in the distance. The bottom of the lighthouse has been cut off due to the inferior mirage, right? But if you push that lighthouse back another 5 miles away, the inferior mirage is going to go higher and higher up the lighthouse, and eventually the whole lighthouse will be behind the inferior mirage. So you apply the same logic to the boat, and it's what I've been able to demonstrate by dozens of different videos that I've released. But I've got hundreds of videos of boats doing this exact same thing. They just go further. They start going away. You see the boat in its entirety, then you get an inferior mirage, and the inferior mirage creeps higher and higher up the boat, and eventually you just see the very top of the boat as an inferior mirage, and it's just disappeared. And a couple of years ago, the Globers used to say this is the proof of Earth curvature because it's going behind the Earth curve, because the inferior mirage was where the Earth curve was in the past. My research has disproved that, and a lot of Globers are on board with this now. A lot of Globers are on board with the inferior mirage isn't the actual Earth curvature. It's been demonstrated by, like, Jose, for instance, who is a globe earther. He's been able to demonstrate the same thing too more recently with his observations, that the inferior mirage happens atmospherically rather than being a physical like mirroring effect. So there's two different, it's not the boat, it's not the duck on the lake that you're looking at and that type of reflection. It's an atmospheric blockage that creates this kind of mirror effect. It's like it's a mirror effect, and it's yeah, it's just that's why boats disappear from the bottom up. And so just to simply say that you can just keep on zooming in on a boat and it'll just reappear. I have never ever seen a boat. Oh, well, I've seen a boat once. I think it was 29 miles away. It's on my channel. I think I triangulated this boat and I'd got its GPS location and everything like that. And I'd seen this boat from, it was 29 miles away anyway when I finished filming it or whatever. And I saw that from an elevation of approximately 10 feet or so above sea level. So I was down in St. Bees and I saw it off the embankment. I went down to the beach. I could still see it. I knew the time. I knew the boat it was. And it was 29 miles away. So yes, on that particular day, I could see a boat very, very far away. But that's been the one exception in thousands of observations that I've always seen. I've never seen a boat for infinity. I don't think it's possible to even think that.
Yeah, it's honestly, it seems like the people that are new to the flat Earth community, people that are trying to make a name for themselves, that's one of the things they always throw out there, is that with enough magnification, you could pull a boat back in. It's like, no. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because
that's wrong. It's so wrong on so many levels. It's the one thing I think of all the flat Earth claims that really, really irks me. Genuinely, I have a horror. Whenever somebody says that, I cringe. If I see a video when somebody does it, I cringe, because I know that they might think that it's right, but I know in my heart that it's wrong.
They're using a false proof.
A false proof, yeah. I mean, you could probably demonstrate that you're seeing a boat far further than you should on the globe, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you can follow that boat and track that boat and it should be lost to Earth curvature. That's fine. But to just say that, oh yeah, now I can't see the boat and watch when I'm zooming in, oh, there the boat appears. You're just not going to be able to keep just doing that. Eventually, the boat's going to go so far away, its angular size is going to become too small. And let's supposing you had no atmosphere and you could just see forever and you could just see that boat, right? There's going to come a point where you're limited to your technology that you have. So the P1000 is going to have a limit to how much data it can collect in each pixel. That boat is going to, at some point, become so small, it's going to be 1 pixel.
Yeah.
It's going to become 1 pixel. And if you can identify a boat from 1 pixel with all the little bits and bobs on the boat, and you can say that's a boat, then well, good on you, because to me that isn't. Yeah, it's just not possible.
Okay. It's good to hear you say that, because I like the honesty. It's calling out what's not right.
I'm always
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm known for that. It's like
So you'd mentioned earlier that your observations kind of made you the hero of the globe Earth. How do you feel about that?
um, it's misrepresentation. Obviously, they just don't understand. And I know that's a claim that the Globers always say they don't understand, they don't understand. And I think this is probably the first time I'm actually using this phrase. But genuinely, I, actually, am I saying it? They don't understand, or they willfully ignore? Probably they willfully ignore or willfully misrepresent what I'm actually presenting. So it isn't a case that I'm releasing one video and that's it, and I'm saying this is some kind of proof.
Mm-hmm.
The documentation is I'm releasing one video, and the people that are subscribed to my channel can use that as a reference to look back at a video I did maybe 2 months ago, and then say, I can see where he's going here, because this is a pattern that we're seeing through the videos. Because I will every month or so put a video out where I do spend a bit of time editing it and going through it and telling people this is what this is what the Inferior Mirage is. Look on this day, look on this day, look on this day, boom. And then I let people figure it out for themselves. As I release a video that just shows the footage, and I might talk through it a bit, and I'll show a boat disappearing into the Inferior Mirage, and that's it. And then a Glober, let's say Conspiracy Cats, will get hold of that video and say, this is proof of the boat. He films a boat going over Earth curvature. And it's like, well, that's a willful misrepresentation, because you can see that I've demonstrated in dozens of previous videos and probably hundreds of presentations that I've done on channels like Nathan Oakley's Flat Earth Debates, Jeranisms, Globe Busters, Roxanne the Globalist Deniers, all this kind of presentations here, there, and everywhere, demonstrating that the effect that we're seeing isn't the boat going over Earth curve. The effect is it's disappearing into the Inferior Mirage. But the Globers take this one video and will present it as globe proof, when they haven't taken it in context with the body of work that I've built up to get to this point, to be able to show that boat doing what it's doing, and have the people that have followed my research understand what they're seeing, understand that it's going behind the Inferior Mirage. There's no words necessary, but people will take that evidence and misrepresent it. So it's one of them.
I'll be honest, Ranty. I did almost exactly what you just said about 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. That's fine.
It's one individual clip. I used one part of one of your videos that from our side looks like a boat going over the curve. And then I showed my videos of what I view as boats going over the curve. So yeah, it's whether it's right or it's wrong, it's kind of in jest. I know generally when Conspiracy Cats does it, he does it tongue in cheek and has a little bit of a laugh behind it. So I'll admit I did it myself once.
Listen, I've no problem with people doing that. I mean, that's what they're going to do. So be it. Yeah. But for me personally, I'm just a very honest person. I've never really looked at anything other than optics on Flat Earth in 3 years of doing this. So I kind of class myself as being, if I had a specialist subject in Flat Earth, it would be about optics, especially optics at the horizon, stuff like that. And being able to look at an observation and try to figure out what was the cause in that. So like immediately, if I see a video of a boat going behind what looks like Earth curvature, real water, I could go to that. I could pretty much guarantee I could find out the time and date of when this video was taken, the location. I would be able to go and see, okay, well, the wind was blowing at 20 miles an hour, which probably means there was probably about a 4-foot chop. Then I'll look at the swell heights in the location. There'll probably be a 1 or 2 meter swell height. Then I'll look at the topography of the land underneath. It could be a lot of shoaling going on there. Suddenly you've got all the things necessary that could cause the water to localized bulge. I would call it like a localized bulge. So that would cause a physical obstruction of the boat that you're looking at. So it's not as clear cut as just saying that there's a boat going over the Earth curvature there. We're just seeing that. But once you understand how water works, if you get in a bath and you slap the water, a ripple goes across the water, yeah, and back and forth, yeah, because water in its natural state just lies flat, but when you put some movement onto it, it creates a hump. But it's understanding what are the causes of creating those little humps, especially on a big body of water like the oceans. So once you look into what could be the causes of that, and then you look into the real data, you look at the buoys. So there's a lot of buoys all around Australia and stuff. So I can tap into the buoys in certain locations, like there's one near Rottnest Island, and I'll be able to check in and see what the swell height is on those dates and times, and it will give me a read off of what the swell height was. And you can formulate where the blockage is going to come. It's just doing your research. It's not as simple as just filming something. Mm-hmm. Once you understand that there's other things at play, that the water is moving, and in certain places, if you ask a sailor, especially a small boat sailor, and you ask them what happens when you go, do you have to prepare for things like shoaling? Do you have to prepare for that? And they go, yeah, of course you do. You have to avoid those areas, because in the shoaling areas, it's turbulence. It's turbulent. Mm. You can throw your boat. It can capsize your boat. So the boats try to avoid areas where it's renowned for shoaling. So once you start asking people that have these boats and things like this, people are aware that you avoid certain areas of the oceans to avoid these encounters with what you'd class as like rogue waves, but they're sort of like rogue waves in a certain location that are always there. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk to somebody who has specialized in one area. I'd say that the majority of people that believe the Earth is flat are just kind of generalists. They don't have one specialty area that they focus on. So I commend you for that. It is interesting, very interesting talking to you about this information. So it's nice that rather than, it seems to be either religious, conspiracy, or just spaghetti on the wall, a bit of everything.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I don't like getting out of my comfort zone. So I will talk to anybody about optics and what would be considered as a boat going over the curve, or inferior mirages, or anything really. Anything about optics over the water. I'm your man. I'll talk to anybody about that, and I'll have a real good debate with them, and I'll probably be able to explain 99% of these apparent observations where a boat goes over the curvature. There is probably maybe 2 or 3 videos in my entire time that I've looked at on flat Earth where I've not been able to explain it. It genuinely baffles me as to what's going on. Doesn't mean that I know everything. I don't know everything. I'm nowhere near knowing everything at all. And but I feel that my research is almost at a point for this particular subject where it's dried up. I don't think there's anything more that I could learn. At least I don't think I could. But the subject about flat Earth is so vast. There's so many different areas that you could go into. If somebody starts talking about Coriolis effect, I could probably talk to them a little bit about it, and then I wouldn't know much further than that. But there are people that specialize in the Coriolis effect. There are people that specialize in the molten iron core, or gas pressure, or whatever. I'm not an expert in that. I don't claim to be, which is why I think I've done my show, because I would rather have people come in that class themselves as an expert in one particular subject, and come in and do a presentation on what they class as their favorite subject, something they know an awful lot about, that they can come in and they can do a presentation, a bit like what I can do on the optics and stuff. I could come in, do a really great presentation, show all the different kinds of effects and things going on, and people will be, wow, okay, I enjoyed that. And that's what I want for this show. So I want someone to come in and say, Coriolis effect, and then just go and knock it out of the park, and have me going, wow, yeah, Coriolis is real, and then I'll expect a flat earther to come in and go, oh, this is my evidence for Coriolis not being real. Boom. And then I go, holy shit, there is no evidence for Coriolis, but I can make my own mind up through that, because I could spend 3 months or 6 months researching it myself, or I could get somebody in to do a presentation and teach me something that they've learned over years of research. They can teach it me in just a few short hours or minutes or whatever, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and they can bring all their evidence, and it speeds up my knowledge. As I say, because I'm not an expert in anything other than, and I wouldn't, why do I say an expert? I wouldn't even say I'm an expert. I'm just very knowledgeable about optics over water.
Okay. Well, that kind of lead into another area. And since you've said that this is your area, if we get into any areas that we talk about that aren't your area, and not, just let me know, we can move on. I'd like to discuss them just to get your opinions, but I'm not
Yeah,
gonna.
okay.
We don't have to do this. But one area of optics that I would like to bring up is space, and not NASA, not the space station, but what we look up at the sky. And the one thing I will bring up about NASA is that I have filmed the space station going in front of the sun 2 times. Give me your interpretation of that. What do you think I took pictures of?
Um, it there's something up there. There's no doubt about that. There is something up there. There's something up there. It's moving relatively fast. Do we know its actual size? So that's the only thing I would say. Whatever you're filming, if you could reduce it by 100 in size, the same with the sun. So you could reduce the sun by 100. You could reduce the angular size of the object that you're looking at by 100, and it would still appear the same. It's just that you're told that it's 100 times further away and 100 times bigger. So whatever you're filming something, but is it necessarily as far away as what they're saying and as high as what they're saying? That's my only thing that I would say, because we're told that the space station is up there flying at a certain height. But what happens if it's only flying at, let's say, 300 miles high or 200 miles high? And let's suppose that we bring the sun the same distance closer, or make it smaller, or whatever, But so apart from, there is something up there for sure. There is definitely something up there. What it is?
One thing I would have to say, just to kind of add to your information on this for your own thought process, is that, so you can predict when the space station is going to transit the sun. There's a website, you put in your location, it can do it. And every time anyone has ever done it, it's been there. So it's reliable. Jaren's done it twice. I've done it twice. Red's Rhetoric has done it a couple times. So the website's reliable. And you can track it across the Earth. So I ran the numbers once, that there was a transit in South America, and 15 minutes later, there's a transit in Spain. So whatever it is, where it is, would have to travel that distance in 15 minutes, which is a little mind-blowing. If it's closer to the Earth, it would have to be moving even faster. I mean, well, it would depend on spatial distances.
Yeah, as I say, I mean, it's not something I've particularly looked into. As I say, it's not my field of research, but I mean, you guys have clearly looked into this, something I haven't done. So I'm not going to get into a back and forth about it. But clearly, I agree with you. There's something up there. There's something up there. It's moving fast. We don't know the trajectory, what the shape of the Earth is. I mean, if you think that what you're talking about, obviously there's distances here and distances there, and it can be seen at these two locations, but that's providing you have an idea of where you think these locations are in relation to each other. Or if they're in a different area than where you think they are, the continents are in a different location, and the setup is slightly different to what you think. It's more flat rather than round. You might be able to predict it differently. We also don't know what the sun is. We can't. There's a lot of people that seem to think that the sun could be not tangible, something that you can't actually go and touch. It could be a body that's just there. It's like a light. But again, it's something that I'm not particularly I've not particularly looked into. So again, I'm going to have to bow down to
that's fine,
to that question.
You'd mentioned
I'm not trying to avoid it, by the way.
Oh, no. I know.
I'm just genuinely, I don't want to say something that I've not researched. So,
Yeah, same here. If it's not my area of something I've studied, I'm not going to talk about it. I'll give you the base knowledge I have, but I'm not going to try and pretend like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned possibility of change, the continents being in different sizes. Do you personally have an idea of what you think the flat Earth looks like?
Oh, crikey. No.
Model that Nathan Oakley hates.
I don't like the term model. When I see the snow globe, it's like, could be real, who knows? I mean, I like to kind of think maybe it's like an infinite plane, perhaps, where we're just in a little pond of a much vaster area, and that there are continents beyond what we what we currently know. I mean, let's suppose we take the official narrative of explorers of, let's say, 500 or 600 years ago or 400 years ago that found new continents and kept finding new continents and kept finding new continents. Well, what happens if there was just a point where they said, okay, we've found enough continents now, we don't really want to go any further, and they made up this story about the globe, right? And this is it. All exploration is done now. You don't need to go any further. You don't need to look any further. We've got this area. But for all we know, there could be 100 times more continents further afield, further away. It could be that we live on like Tony says, Sleeping Warrior. He says we could live on a planet the size of Jupiter, but you wouldn't be able to detect because of the sizes that we've been given. That's why we're struggling to find any Earth curvature, because the planet is so big, so vast, and we could be on some kind of Jupiter planet that maybe spins. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. I've not looked into it, but it's definitely a process that I don't believe we have all the continents mapped out. I think there's more land for sure.
Have you heard of the Pac-Man model?
I've heard of it. I haven't looked into it.
I haven't looked into it either. That one seems a little too ridiculous to even look into. The image I've seen of it is basically a triangle type shape. That way you still have Antarctica at the south. And like Pac-Man, when you go off of one side, somehow you magically appear and come back onto the other.
Okay, I mean, some people probably think that's real, so I don't know. I mean, like I said, I just don't know. I probably spent far too long on optics. I'll be honest.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But I would rather be what they class, like my granddad used to tell me, rather than being a jack of all trades and a master of none, be a master of something. And that was one of his passions. He kept instilling that in me. You need to focus on one thing. Don't go any further don't step out of your comfort zone. If you've got something that you're good at, stick at it. And with me, optics, that was it. It's great. But I've spent 3 years doing this on optics, and it's like, okay, optics is like 1% of all the stuff I could look into. So yeah, have I probably spent too long on it? Yes. But have I been able to find a lot more answers than other people have ever talked about on Flat Earth? Well, yeah, I have. And I've also done so many different presentations on it. So people are a lot more acutely aware now of what's going on over water and stuff. But that's a detriment to these sort of questions about the ISS. And, because I don't really know. And the model, who knows? I mean, I'd love to go to Antarctica and beyond, but we can't go there. The legal hoops you have to go through to get there, it's nigh on impossible,
There's one question that I asked Mark Sargent was because he said that you can't go to Antarctica, and he was a little more adamant about it, that you couldn't. But I had to ask him, he's like, so do you know anybody who's been turned around? Do you know anybody who has actually physically tried to do it and failed? And he said that he didn't. So he was a little more adamant about you can't go there. So I'm of the opinion you can go there if you take the right steps.
Yeah, you've got to go where they say. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's tours down there, so you can go on a tour, but it's a tour in a very, very small area that you can go to. What we're talking about here is just exploration of the entire continent, or if it is a continent or beyond, whatever, an entire permit to go down there for a year, 2 years, however long it is, with your dog sleighs or whatever kind of equipment you want to use to go down there, and literally just go down there and explore. That isn't going to happen. They're never going to allow you to do that. That's the difference. As flat earthers, we would love that opportunity for the governments to say, yeah, you can go down there, just look after your stuff, pick up your dirt, pick up your trash, don't leave anything down there. But if you want to go down there and you want to explore, be our guest. You've got the whole year to go down there and explore, but they wouldn't do that.
Has anybody tried, though, that you know of? Because it's a bold claim without any backing.
Taboo Conspiracy released a video. I think it was Taboo Conspiracy about the difficulties of going down to Antarctica and the permits you'd need to get, who you would have to get agreements from, and it's not just as simple as just applying for a permit. I mean, it could cost you millions and millions and millions of pounds to apply to just get these permits and still be turned down at any point throughout the process. You could be turned down. So the chances of if you believe that the Earth is flat and you realise that the governments are all working to keep this secret, there isn't a chance in hell that they're going to allow you to go down there and explore Antarctica. So that's why these rules are in place, where they can turn you down for anything. So literally the chances of having a successful application, very slim. If we had infinite resources to apply for it and could afford to waste, let's say, an arbitrary £5 million on a failed application to go down to Antarctica, and we jumped through all the hoops and everything like that to go down there, and we knew we were going to get turned down anyway, but somebody would have to cough up, or the community would have to cough up 5 million, let's say, in a pot that's going to be just given to the governments because they're going to take it because they're never going to allow us to go down there anyway. That's my feeling. And I think that's everyone's feeling is the same, you know what I mean? But like you say, if we had 5 million to waste to apply for it and document it and make it very public that this is what we're doing, we're trying to go to Antarctica to explore, we're willing to jump through all the hoops, all the regulations to do it, and still get turned down, because I feel that's what would happen.
If you wouldn't mind, give me just 1 second.
Sure.
I just ran out of disk space.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a problem with.
Nope. What's going on? See if I can get this going. We're still recording on Skype, so I've still got the video and the audio. Just trying to get better from my screen capture, if possible. If not, we'll just keep going on OBS.
No worries. I mean, it's like disk space is a bitch. I've encountered that myself. I mean, the amount of I've got hard drives after hard drives, literally lying around with data. It's just ridiculous. I think I've got 6 terabytes up to now.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just keep going. Just got to remember next time, clear off some space. Because I interviewed Nathan Roberts this morning, so that's sucking up some space as well.
All right, okay. So you're turning this into a little show then, essentially.
That's what I'm aiming for. Give me a second. Yeah, I'm actually going to pull Roberts over. Because I'm not one for debating. I don't want to debate. I'm not a confrontational type of person. I would rather just chat with people. So that's kind of what the goal is just to have a conversation. And honestly, that's kind of how I got into Flat Earth, was I didn't understand how people could think this way. So that's why I research, trying to figure out the human aspect of it, not necessarily the science aspect of it, because I already had a lot of science background, personal science background. But I wanted to know the people of it to better understand them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw an image that you put out once. I mean, I might bring it up at some point. That I would actually like to ask you about, to be fair.
Yeah.
Because I would like a better understanding of what we're actually looking at. Would you mind if I actually find that image? And ask you about
that. Is it the one of the building? Let me see. I actually had it pulled up.
It's one of a boat. You've taken an image. You've taken a photograph of a gentleman fishing off the seawall, and in the background you have a boat in the behind him.
Oh yes. So the boat itself was not the purpose of the video.
I know, but it looks right. Everything's in focus. So you have the human in focus. You have the boat in focus. So the boat can only be maybe a couple of miles away, or maybe 3 at most, and you're looking at this gentleman. So he's filming off the seawall. Your camera height is clearly level with his shorts or so. So you're at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 feet above the actual seawater at the time. So there should be no issues with any kind of earth curve between you and the boat. Because if the boat's only 3 miles away, you shouldn't have any issues with the earth curves from that. But the boat is clearly sunken. It's like half of it sunk. And it's like, how is that even possible?
We might have to talk about that one later, because I'm just going to let Skype do its thing. We'll talk about that one later, because I'm not sure if we're talking about the same one.
Okay.
So we were last talking about Antarctica. What was I going to ask?
So yeah, you were saying about Mark Sargent had said that we can't go to Antarctica.
Yeah.
I said it's possible that I think they have a system out there that lets you think that you can go there, but when you actually delve into the actual process of applying for a permit to go down there, which Taboo
Hmm.
Conspiracy did this video about and was able to go through it from start to finish. At any time they can refuse you, by the way, and the chances of you getting a permit very slim to non-existent at all, completely. And especially if you're going to do flat Earth research, they're just not going to do it.
Yeah. So that was my next question. I was thinking, what is the purpose of hiding it?
Well, there's a few different things. I mean, I'm leaning towards the idea that they are trying to eliminate religion,
Okay.
because if you look through out what is told us is recorded history, and again that's another subject whether or not we're told the correct timelines and histories and stuff, but from what they tell us about history, where you look at all the different wars that have been fought throughout the ages, um, almost all of them essentially have been about religion, or
Hmm.
fought over religion. So if you replace religion and God and eliminate the creator and put in its place heliocentrism and scientism, and this is how we were created, there is no God, so there is no religion, and everybody then falls into this Star Trek mindset where everyone's working to become Star Trekkers of their own. All the countries in the world are turning to science and the Big Bang and all this kind of stuff. And eliminating God, you eliminate religion, you eliminate the wars, you eliminate the hatred, because everyone's trying to do a common goal, they've got a common idea rather than different ideas about religion. So, I think that's what it's. Personally, I think that's what it would be about. If you was looking at it from a standpoint of what would they be doing it for good for, then it would be to eliminate the wars. But there's other people that would say that it's for more, nefarious reasons. But me
How far do
personally,
you
I just
how far do you think that
well,
goes back, though?
what's that?
The conspiracy to cover up the shape of the Earth, because that would have to go back a long ways. And
Well,
to me, there would have to be a beginning of that decision process, and then a handing down of the information.
yeah, I think when it was first theorized about the shape of the Earth being a globe, and it was actually pushed harder and harder and harder by the elites. That's what it is, obviously. Um, you realise that the populations as a whole throughout the world all believed the Earth was flat still, but we had scientists and talking to each other thinking that the Earth was a globe. Um, I think the indoctrination started sometime in the mid 19th century or so sort of like 1850s onwards, when they started, this evolution and things like this,
Hmm.
and they started putting that kind of out, and then they obviously the Earth's a ball, and then at the start of the last century, so sort of like 1900 or so, I think that's when they started the schooling, and it was like forced for kids to go to school to be taught um, to be given an education, which it sounds really great. Kids go to school, they learn stuff, they become cleverer, they're able to do stuff. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it could be that, if you're looking at it from that side of view, yeah, great. But on the other side of the coin, if you look at it from, if you want to indoctrinate a society or worldwide society, how do you do that? Well, you create you create it as a legal obligation for the kids to go to school. You force them to go to school. They are taught that the Earth is this shape, science, the globe, blah 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 blah, and over generations, then that indoctrination is complete. So from the start of 1900 to the mid 1980s or so, that indoctrination was complete. Everybody that used to think the Earth was flat now longer believes the Earth's a globe, because that's what they were taught from being a kid. And the grandparents now know it, and the dads now know it, and then they've got the space race, with rockets going up and landing on the moon, and yeah, it's just a complete
So, how many
erase.
people do you think actually know the truth?
Not many, I would have thought. Not many. It doesn't need that many. It's all what's it called? Departmentalized or whatever it's called. Oh,
Compartmentalization.
that's the one. Yeah. So if you've got a triangle, for instance, obviously the pyramid system, people at the top, they know what they know. And then they just give a little bit of information out to one side, a little bit of information to the other, and then they dilute that information to the next tier, to the next tier, to the next tier. So it's like when you look back at how they built the rockets to go to land on the moon, and the equipment that they used, they probably had tens of thousands of different manufacturers making every little component. I mean, what was the point in that? A nut, one nut made from one company in Chicago, and another nut made from from a different company in Illinois.
But
Just
at
so that
what
they
point
could.
during that build did someone, because everybody that made those parts made them for a purpose.
Hmm.
Either someone had to create a false information so it didn't matter what that nut was, or somebody who believed they had the scientific background and the know-how to send a rocket to space built it to spec.
Yeah, I mean, there are. Do the rockets go into space though? That's the thing. We see a launch, and we see it go up, and then it turns and it goes almost vertical, if not vertical. But how do we know that it's gone into space? That's the thing. We never seen a full from launch to space uncut, unedited.
SpaceX is doing that pretty routine nowadays.
I've yet to see that. Then I'm yet to see that.
They might change camera angles, looking different directions,
It's
but
probably, yeah. I would
that
rather it just be one continuous image, to be fair. And even so, I mean, I'm not beyond the idea that when we're told that these are like hundreds and thousands of miles up, they might only be 200 or 300 miles up. Who's to say where the sea? Who's to say that they've actually left what could be considered Earth's atmosphere? It could be just up there, as high as you can go. There is very little like gravitational force, or whatever you would choose to call it, or whether density and buoyancy has an effect, and whether things can just float up there. Things might just be able to float up there, and we're just told that it's space. There's a lot of things that I'm thinking that are probably completely different to a lot of what other flat earthers are thinking. But I'm not averse to the idea that there's probably a lot of truth in what the globers are saying. It's possible that there could be some kind of um, how would you explain it? Like satellites could be real. There could be
inside the
satellite.
dome.
Yes, if there was a dome, if there was a dome. I mean, I'm not saying there is a dome,
Okay.
but again, it's possible that in these gradients, these pressure gradients, where you go higher and higher, it's possible that there could be an area, if there was a dome, inside the dome, that would allow satellites to be able to fly around, and which is why there's a lot of flat globe earthers that genuinely believe that there are satellites up there, right? I'm not averse to all these people that say that they're all on a balloon. They're all on a balloon, and they go up there and they just stick them on a balloon, and that's why Um, I don't just necessarily believe that. I believe that there could be a region high enough where satellites can operate, but it doesn't mean that you can go any higher than that or get further out into so-called space, because you might not be able to go beyond a certain height. You know?
Yeah, and I know this has been a topic of discussion recently within the flat Earth community on a downward force, which we
Mm.
call gravity. I know Jaron and Bob had a little bit of a back and forth on it, whether there is an actual downward force, something that causes it. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I'm more of the density and in its, as opposed to gravity. I don't think there's a gravitational force that we what we're told is gravity anyway. I mean, there could be some kind of electromagnetic thing that's working towards some kind of downward force. Um, I just think that the density and buoyancy explain pretty much everything.
So
Everything just.
You'd mentioned earlier the religious aspect of it. If I may ask you, what are your religious beliefs? How strong are your religious beliefs?
Well, as a kid, I was brought up religious as a kid. Then I got to about 17 or so, 18. I just said, yeah, I've had enough of that. I want to go out and just party and and do things differently. So I sort of like turned away from religion back then and just went out and did my own thing. And I'm still not religious per se. I guess I believe that there must be some kind of creator, but to be fair, I mean, I could spend probably the next 10 years researching all the different religions and which one's going to be true, which one's going to be wrong. They'll pretty much say the same thing, that there's a creator and a God, but just different ways you live your life, and it's like, well, if there is a God, I hope he just understands that, it's nothing personal, but I'm not going to pray to you every day. But I will still tell people that you exist. You must exist in some form if we believe in the Earth being flat. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I know which one is true, whether it's Yahweh, whatever it's called, or Jehovah, or whatever. All these different names that they come up with. But it could be any one of them, for all we know. But who's to say
Okay.
which is the right one? I don't know. I genuinely don't know which is the right one. So I'm not going to just go and say, oh, I'm a Christian, or I'm a Catholic, or I'm a this, that, and the other. Or Buddhist or whatever. It doesn't, I just know that there must be a creator, but I don't know which one's right. So I'm not going to make a choice. And if there is a creator or slash God who wants to judge me after, and condemn me to a lifelong in hell or whatever, and if they're not praying to him every night, then so be it. If that's the way, if he wants to be so petty about that and take it out on me because I didn't pray to him every night, then so be it. But judge me on how I live my life, that's fair enough. If you want to judge me on how I've gone through my life as a human and acted towards other people and how I've been, that's fair enough. But just judging me because I've not prayed to you every night, that's okay. Well, it's your pettiness, not mine.
I can say that I agree with you on that.
Okay, cool.
So oddly, I'm kind of running out of questions because normally people have opinions on everything. But it's nice that I was able to talk to you specifically about your specialty and the things that you know about. Are there any other areas of the flat Earth that are very intriguing to you?
Ooh, well, I would love to know, to be able to go to Antarctica. That would be the ultimate. I think ambition to put something together maybe over the next few years. Maybe not, obviously not right now. Obviously, I have a feeling this movement will get a little bit bigger, maybe a lot bigger. Who knows? But at some point, there's going to come a time when we need to go beyond what we're already doing, which is just sitting in a corner of YouTube or on Facebook or whatever and talking about this kind of stuff. There's a lot of clever people out there that have done a lot of research on a lot of different things. I mean, FE Core are doing tremendous stuff. I mean, I'm part of FE Core, but to be honest, I'm more of just a sit back and listen. I mean, they brought me in specifically about optics, but that's it. So I've done my little part on optics now, and basically I can see all their research that they're doing with gyroscopes and all this kind of lasers and stuff like this. That are just, when they release all this stuff, it's going to blow everyone's mind. Genuinely, everyone's going to go, "Holy wow!" Right? But they're not releasing it right now. They're getting everything formatted together. It's probably going to be another process, 3 to 6 months. But when they actually release all this information and party to that, it's going to be great for flat Earth. So just stay tuned, and these guys are clever. They've got the equipment, they've got the resources to put these things together and to come up with answers. So they have been doing it, and they've been doing it very, very scientifically as well. So it's
So,
there's as I say, so obviously you've got people like me that just does my little thing with a camera. Camera's only going to get you so far,
mhm.
but and there's people that talk about it a lot but don't actually do any kind of testing. There's a lot of people that theorize about stuff, but people actually doing real world testing of stuff. This is what FE Core are doing, really going hard on a whole bunch of different things that I'm not liberty to talk about right now. But
Yeah.
when they release it, it's everyone's just going to be like, wow, these guys have been working hard for the past year and a half, and this is what they've come up with already, and it's going to bring a lot of scientists over to look at this research and hopefully encourage some more clever people to come along and take part. So what we see as the current crop of quote unquote top flat earthers, probably in a couple of years' time won't be the case. We'll probably be having PhD scientists come in who create a channel about about it. Who knows? And are able to put stuff out that just completely just blows away all the current crop of flat earthers, myself included. Will be obsolete. We'll be the start. We'll be the tip of the spear. But by the time that in a few years' time, we'll be so far at the back end of the spear that no one will even see us.
So are you going to try and make it to the convention this year in Dallas?
Haven't planned on it.
Okay.
Haven't planned on it yet. I don't know. Maybe I'm not really a convention person, to be honest. But we'll see.
Well, you'd have information to present, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I could do a presentation and I could keep people occupied for a couple of hours. By all means, I could really do that if I wanted to. But I haven't been invited, and I've never really chased that dream to go and be a presenter at the conference. Although I could probably do a very good, interesting part if I was given the opportunity. But we'll see.
So last couple questions, and then we'll give you a chance to plug all your information and talk about some other things. Two things that I try and ask everybody if they've got an answer is, what do you think, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, what is your biggest proof for a flat earth?
Well, just for me personally, because I like optics, is in my location. I can go down to the shoreline and I can set my camera up at I've actually dug my camera into the sand and let the water envelop. So I was essentially at sea level, or millimeters above the actual height of the water at the time, and was still able to see these buildings of Barrow some 18.3 miles away. I've done an observation from a foot where you actually saw really clear shore-to-shore footage. What I mean? There was no doubt in anybody's mind that we were seeing absolute shore-to-shore from 18.3 miles away. So for me personally, it's a case that if you believe in the globe model, the shape of the water must conform to the gravitational force being acted on it, which would pull it into a sphere. So it can be measured as a measured curvature, 8 inch per mile squared, or 7.98 inch per mile squared. In any event, water must always be curving. It can't take a day off. If gravity took a day off, we'd all be dead in an instant. So if I can see these buildings at 18.3 miles away, shore to shore, over a body of water that should have curvature between me and it, then there's a problem for the globe. The answer for the globe is that all those buildings are being loomed up by refraction around the curvature of the Earth into my eye line. It's the most nonsensical thing I've ever heard in my life. I've never been able to find any real proof that actually happens. I've tried to conduct my own testing for seeing whether or not there's any looming going on. I've never been able to find it, and I have tried really hard to try and do that. Can't find evidence for looming, can't find evidence for these buildings being miraculously lifted up beyond the Earth curve. Just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. I mean, you're not telling me that these stuff that I'm filming are a hologram. Every time I go down and film this, it's those buildings aren't really there. It's a hologram. It's like, no, that isn't it. I'm seeing it with my eyes. It's like, there's no way that that's a hologram. So me personally, just because I see it, I see flatness. I don't see curvature. So, and if we believe there's a sphere, all water must curve. We should have blockage constantly over water at a given rate. But here, where I live at least, we don't see that. So that means that the force of gravity cannot be acting on the water where I live. Either that, or it's being bent around the curvature of the Earth, which I just don't. I'm not a believer in that.
Then what is the one thing that makes you question the most? The one thing that you can't answer?
There's a whole bunch of things. I mean, I'm a realist. I realise that the globe has answers for everything. Has answers, whether or not you believe the answers or not is a different matter. I believe that there's also a huge gap to close between what we consider absolute flat Earth proofs as opposed to the globe. I think the star trails, perhaps, southern star trails. We need to do a little more research in that specific area because it's a big whip that the globe has to bash us flat earthers with, and we don't seem to be offering anything to combat that. So unless we can actually figure that, I mean, to be honest, if I didn't have my own show, what I'm doing now, I would probably start looking into these star trails because that to me is like the next big thing. Originally, it was like optics because everybody sees something and this is the proof of the globe, proof of the globe. So for me, optics was a good thing to go after immediately because I could do it. I'm here, I can do it, and I have the will to put time and effort into it. But if I was to do a next subject and something else that I wanted to get stuck into, it would probably be that. But I'm probably living in the wrong hemisphere for that.
Yeah, you're a little too far away to see that.
But I mean, I wish people would, or flat earthers would, combine themselves to look into that.
Yeah, I know there's been several attempts at answering. Jaron has his personal atmospheric domes. Eric Dubé had a video where everything, like the sky rolled as you went south, and it made no sense. You can't follow what he's trying to throw. I like the fact that you're honest about that. Like we've been talking this whole time. If you don't know, you don't know. And to me, I would say there's been a lot of people that have told me the same thing. The Southern Hemisphere, the South Pole, the sun and the stars, we need answers to that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like we need answers to it, and there's a lot of clever people on flat Earth, but they all seem to be avoiding that topic. They need to do what I did and just dedicate themselves to one subject, just one subject, and specialize in it. If you're a jack of all trades and a master of none, it's not helping the community. What you need to do is you need to find a subject that you are really passionate about and devote all your time and effort to that, and just have a one-track mind to figure out whatever it is, just one niche. Because if everybody just did one niche, we might get somewhere. But if we're all just babbling about the same stuff and nobody's really putting a whole lot of effort into one particular niche, nobody's going to get any answers. It's just going to be going around in circles all the time. And I know that it sounds, just the idea that you're a flat earther to most people makes you instantly somewhat insane. Okay. But it's not going to help our cause if we just don't come up with any answers to anything. We need to find these answers. So, the Globers have got their proofs. We've got ours. Prove Coriolis. These two reference frames. Why when a helicopter goes up, does the Earth not spin underneath it? And but yeah, a bullet does. What about a glider then? That's because we could get into this all day long.
Yeah,
about
we prove Coriolis. Yeah.
You can't prove it. But then again, so we can whip you over that. But you guys can't half whip us about these southern star trails and stuff. So, who knows? I just want people to just think of something that they're interested in, one specific topic, and stick to it, research it, and become your own little expert in it, sort of thing. And it might give other people ideas then to take that information and then expand on it. Because you've been so concise about one particular subject.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so that's all I've got. Thank you for coming and talking with me. If you want to take a couple of minutes, talk about your shows. I know you've got the show that I was on. If you want to talk about that, and you've got a new show coming out. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Or new format.
Well, it's the roundtable. So obviously you were part of the roundtable. I had you on. You did a presentation there. Thank you very much for coming down and doing that. I think you were one of the early ones. So yes. I think I've had a few shows since. I think we're on about show number 20 now. But the idea of that is exactly what I've just been talking about, is to bring somebody in with a knowledge about one particular subject that's within this whole big subject of flat Earth. So it only has to be like 1% of what we need to know. But if you feel that you're an expert in that and you have a real passion for the Coriolis effect, right, and you can demonstrate it, and you've got this one, even if it's just one real experiment that you can come along and show it 100% concrete proof that this proves Coriolis effect, then come on my show, tell the audience, tell everybody about it, and then we'll bring the audience in to ask you questions about it. And if it stands up, it stands up. But it's obviously it's your claim. But if you're an expert in that, you can come along and you can demonstrate it in some respects. And that's what I want. I want people to come in with a specific niche that they want to come in and talk about. And then I want it from both sides. So I want a glober and a flat earther to come in and both do a presentation on one particular subject, let's say the moon landings. And then hopefully get these two back to then have a debate with each other about it. So yeah, there's different formats to the round table. There's the presentations, there's the debate format that we can get into. I also do a bit of chit chats, so I'll just bring people in to do a chit chat. So recently I've had a panel of flat earthers in doing a chit chat. So we've been talking amongst ourselves, but I want to open the platform up for globe earthers to come in too and basically just sit down and hog the mic amongst themselves and talk about the globe earth and tell us how ridiculous flat earth is and all the proofs for the globe and blah blah blah. A bit like what flat earthers do when they just get together. Let's get the globe earthers together and let's, and we can listen to this, because one thing I'm finding is we're just not listening. Globe earthers don't listen to flat earthers. They listen and it's in one ear and it's out the other, and then they go cuckoo. And we do the same. We do exactly the same. Flat earthers do the same to the globers. I don't go to the globers channels. Globers don't go to other flat earthers channels. But I hope this format allows for two sides to start seeing the other side's arguments. So if I'm bringing in 50% flat earthers and 50% globe earthers to do presentations, and then doing the debates, and then opening the platform for a bit of chit chat between each, the audiences are going to mix. We're going to have 50% of flat earthers and globe earthers inside the chat that are listening to other people talk about what they are passionate about. So flat earthers are going to listen to globe earthers talking and think, well, that's interesting. And then globe earthers are going to listen to flat earthers talking. And I hope this is the start of a more sensible dialogue where we can just start being more reasonable with each other, listening to what they're saying, and then taking what they've said, researching it and seeing whether or not it stands up to any kind of scrutiny. And I think it's the only way to move forward, because we just don't have cross-pollination between the two opposing arguments, because we don't listen. Essentially, we just don't listen, and that's the whole point. There's no listening going on.
When I first saw that you were offering that format, I jumped on it right away, because I really like that idea. I like the idea of bringing someone on and one topic, one thing, because if we gloss over 20 things, nobody learns anything. But if you can nail one thing down, people might learn. So I really like the concept of that. That's why I jumped on right away. I don't know if I've got any other specific topics that I'm, intelligent enough in to come and talk about it. I could come on, and I'm sure my viewers are going to be annoyed at this because I talk about it all the time, but I have a Cavendish experiment in my spare bedroom, and I've been building it for the past 7 months. Been running the initial tests on it. I'm getting results. It appears that mass attracts mass. So supporting the concept of gravity, that might be something I'd be willing to come on and talk to people about. I know they're going to tear the experiment apart. I understand that, but I'm doing the experiment. Just like you said before, I am doing the experiment. I'm not taking it off of anybody else's experimentation. I spent the past 7 months, probably about $1,000, to build a Cavendish in my spare bedroom.
Yeah. That's amazing. And to be fair, I mean, I would love to have that kind of presentation on the show. You can tell what all the properties of the build you had into it, what materials you used, what were the just all the different variables that happened. Is it in a case? Was there any wind? All this kind of stuff. And then what you'll probably find is that people will be able to say, oh, well, you use this material or that material, or this wasn't quite right, and then give you some feedback on that. But people that go out and do do stuff like this, I love that, because there's too many talkers in flat Earth, and there's too many talkers in globe Earth, and there isn't as many people going out and doing real research. This is real research, in my opinion, and whether or not you're getting a result, I'd love to see the result. I'd love to see if it stands up to any kind of challenge from the flat earthers. You might have used the materials that nobody can argue against, and it definitely proves gravity, in which case, okay. Okay, then, it's like we can't go and say that's wrong. I mean, if you've done it properly. So yeah, we need this. We need people like you doing this kind of stuff in different kinds of subjects.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Ranty, thank you very much for giving me your time. We've been going for about an hour and a half now. It's late Sunday night for me, Sunday afternoon for you. So thank you very much for coming. Is there anything else you'd like to plug for your side or anything?
Yeah, so I think this week I've got George Netanyuk, so he'll be on tonight doing a presentation on gas pressure. So that's for the globe side. So he'll be coming on telling everybody how gas pressure works inside the atmosphere. I think tomorrow I've opened up the platform for globe earthers to come in and have a chit chat. So if anybody wants to have a chit chat as a globe earth proponent, they can message me and I'll bring them in on the Skype call, and then those guys can just go back and forth and tell everybody about the globe. So that's tomorrow night. That'll be Monday. On Wednesday, I've got Mark Sargent hopefully coming on to have a bit of a chit chat. So he'll be coming in on Wednesday for a chit chat. I think we're going to get Globebusters on and Jeranism hopefully within the next week or two. Again, that'll be another one. And I've got a few more things coming up. So it's interesting that a lot of people have taken note about the show and the format and stuff. And I'm still learning, I'll be honest. I'm still learning how to moderate. I'm still learning how to be a good moderator, because some things recently haven't gone as well as I thought. And inside the chit chat, there was an incident recently that the globe earthers took offense at, and the flat earthers loved. But I'm new to this, so we'll see how that goes. Right. We're not nobody's perfect, but I am learning and I'm trying. So
that's good. Good on you, man. I don't catch all of them, but I try and catch a bunch of them, especially the ones that pique my interest based on the topic.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I mean, some of the subjects are, just either not interesting to some people or whatever, but to other people, they are very interesting. And it's all about niche subjects. And, there might only be 10 people that are interested in the subject inside a chat of a few hundred people, a couple hundred people that are watching the show. But there might only be 10 people that are really interested in that subject, and they want to listen to every word that this person's saying, because they might be researching it themselves, and they might want to take a little piece or a snippet of that information that they've been told and apply it to their own research, and then get a better knowledge of that for themselves. And hopefully then down the line, they may want to do a presentation themselves. So I'm hoping that this format will just encourage more research from different people, bring more people in the future that can elaborate more on what's already been presented.
Awesome. And encourage the dialogue.
Encourage dialogue in a nice way, without having to just rip each other's eyes out and ad hom people all the time and call each other names. And, I don't really want that. I don't think there's any place for it. If you want to get into a debate, just a chit chat debate, and you want to rip each other apart, okay, I'll host that, fine. But as opposed to the roundtable format, I would rather just have it where you come in, you do a very well presented presentation, you take questions from the audience. It's all very civil, and when we go into those debates as well between the two opposing people that have done those presentations, then they do a very civil debate too, so that hopefully we can get some kind of answers at some point, because we're not getting answers at the minute.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again very much for your time. For anybody that has stuck around for an hour and 40 minutes of this, thank you for sticking around. And until next time, take care.